The headline strikes with the force of a tabloid gavel. Heartbreaking Prince William's painful update leaves royal fans in tears. It is crafted for the digital age, a bolt of emotion, an emoji, a promise of vicarious sorrow. But behind the algorithmic clickbait lies a profound and enduring human story, one that stretches far beyond a single update. This is not merely about a moment that brought fans to tears. It is about the relentless, piercing spotlight on a man whose lifelong destiny is to bear the twin burdens of profound personal loss and inescapable public duty. Prince William's journey is a masterclass in navigating the treacherous terrain where private grief and public expectation collide, a slow, painful, and ultimately transformative evolution from a grieving son into a future king, shaped by the very heartbreak that threatened to define him. To understand the depth of William's painful updates, one must first return to the foundational trauma, the loss of Diana, Princess of Wales. The image of a 15-year-old boy, head bowed, walking behind his mother's coffin behind a card labeled mummy is seared into global consciousness. That day, his pain was not an update. It was a silent, screaming national event. The world wept, but William and Harry were forced to mourn inside a gilded cage, expected to display stoic dignity while their world shattered. This early, brutal lesson that his deepest sorrows were international public property fundamentally shaped William's relationship with his own emotions and the media. He learned that grief, in his world, is rarely a private affair. It is a state to be managed, a narrative to be controlled, and a vulnerability that can be exploited. For years, the strategy was one of dignified silence. William, alongside Harry, spoke sparingly of their mother, guarding their memories as sacred, private treasures. The pain was there, palpable in the occasional strained expression or hesitant interview, but it was contained. The first major conscious update on his grief came not in words, but in actions. He established the Diana, Princess of Wales Memorial Ward, and later, with Harry, the Sentebale charity for Lesotho's children. These were acts of channeled grief, transforming personal loss into public good. It was a royal template, private pain converted into public service. Yet the core of his sorrow remained veiled, a protected space the public could sense but not enter. The dynamics of this managed grief began to shift dramatically with two life events: his marriage to Catherine Middleton in 2011 and the birth of his children, George, Charlotte, and Louis. Here, the painful updates became intertwined with joy, creating a new, complex layer of emotional exposure. In Catherine, he found not just a partner, but a steadfast ally who understood the pressures of his world. The birth of his children, however, reopened the wound of his own childhood loss of fresh intensity. Every milestone, a first step, a first day at school, was inevitably filtered through the public's and his own awareness of what he missed and what Diana missed. The photos released to mark birthdays, often taken by Catherine, were more than charming snapshots. They were carefully curated glimpses into a family life he was determined to protect, a conscious rebuild of the stability he lost. The pain was now laced with the fierce protectiveness of a father, making any public discussion of his inner life even more fraught. This tension between revelation and protection reached its most harrowing point with the departure of Prince Harry and Meghan Markle from royal life, and the subsequent public fractures. The Sandringham Summit, the Oprah interview, Harry's memoir, Spare. Each event was a seismic, public tearing of the family fabric. For William, the pain was multifaceted: the loss of a brother as a close confidant, the anger at perceived attacks on his wife and the institution he is destined to lead, and the dreadful echo of past media frenzies. Any update from William during this period, however carefully worded, be it a brief statement about being very sad or his visible, strained body language at public events, was dissected for meaning. The subtext was always the same: a man grieving a living relationship, watching a private rift become a global spectacle. The tears of royal fans were not just for him, but for the dissolution of a brotherly bond the world had watched grow from those two boys in black suits following their mother's coffin. Then came the pivotal, courageous shift. William began to speak about his mental health and grief with a new, raw candor. This was the era of the truly painful update, delivered not by palace press release, but from the heart. In documentaries and interviews for campaigns like Heads Together, he spoke of the pain like no other pain of losing his mother and the overwhelming grief that resurfaced during the early years of parenthood. He described moments of feeling very sad and quite angry, and the importance of talking about it. This was revolutionary for a senior royal, let alone a future king. He was deliberately dismantling the stiff upper lip archetype, using his platform to reframe strength not as silence, but as vulnerability. Each of these admissions was a calculated risk, a gift of trust to the public that also exposed his most tender scars. Fans didn't just cry for him in these moments, they cried with him, and for their own losses, given permission by his words. The most profound updates, however, often come in the unspoken. They are in the symbolism of his choices. His decision to walk his wife and children to school, a direct contrast to his own childhood experiences of being whisked away in a car. The inclusion of Diana's favorite songs at his wedding. The naming of his daughter Charlotte Elizabeth Diana. The private ways he ensures his children know their grandmother. These are all profound communications of an enduring love and a continuing grief. When he visits a homelessness project or speaks with bereaved children, there is an empathy that feels deeply personal, forged in his own furnace of loss. The public sees not just a prince performing duty, but a man connecting from a place of understood pain. The recent years have brought new monumental losses, compounding this lifelong grief. The death of his beloved grandfather, Prince Philip, and most earth-shatteringly, his grandmother, Queen Elizabeth II, represented the end of an era and the loss of his last grandparent, a guiding star and a source of immense personal stability. Standing vigil by her coffin, now as the Prince of Wales, the parallels to his mother's funeral were inescapable and agonizing. The weight of history, of duty, and of personal adoration crashed down upon him. His update to the nation following her death, speaking of her wisdom and reassurance, was stoic, but the grief was etched in every line on his face. He was now the senior figure, the pillar for the nation, while navigating a fresh, profound sorrow of his own. So, what is the painful update that leaves royal fans in tears today? It is rarely one single statement. It is the cumulative, visible weight of this journey. It is seeing the boy who lost his mother become the man who carries the memories of a mother, a grandfather, a grandmother, and the fractured brotherhood into his future role. It is witnessing the evolution of his grief, from a silent, hidden burden to a spoken, shared experience that he uses as a tool for public healing. The tears fans shed are complex. They are tears of empathy for the boy he was and the man he has had to become. They are tears of admiration for the resilience he displays, balancing immense personal sorrow with unwavering duty. They are tears of connection, as his openness about mental health resonates with their own experiences of loss. And perhaps they are tears of nostalgia for the happy princes of the 80s, for the unity of the Fab Four, for the glimmer of Diana they see in him. Prince William's story is a heartbreaking human saga unfolding within a glittering, anachronistic institution. Every painful update, be it a spoken word, a silent tear at a memorial, or the determined set of his jaw during a crisis, is a chapter in that saga. He has been forced to master the impossible art of public mourning, transforming his private heartbreak into a source of public strength. The crown he will one day wear is woven with thorns of personal loss, but he carries it forward, showing that even future kings are human, that grief is not a weakness to be hidden but a truth to be integrated, and that sometimes the most powerful update a leader can give is a simple, honest acknowledgement of pain. This is the heartbreaking, beautiful, and deeply moving legacy he is building, one painful, honest step at a time. It is a reminder that behind the headlines and the titles, the weight of a crown is measured not in carats, but in the quiet, courageous endurance of a heart that has learned, publicly and painfully, how to break and yet continue to beat in service to others. It's not just about a recent painful update. It's about connecting the dots from a shattered 15-year-old boy walking behind his mother's coffin to the future king who now has to hold a family and the nation together through his own compounded grief. This article masterfully unravels how Prince William has been forced to master the impossible art of public mourning, transforming private, devastating heartbreak into a source of public strength. The writing is powerful and empathetic, moving beyond tabloid tears to explore the real, raw psychology of inheriting a crown woven with thorns of personal loss. It talks about the strategic silence, the cautious revelations, and how becoming a husband and father reopened old wounds with a new, fierce intensity. It frames his entire journey as a slow evolution from a grieving son into a leader who is redefining royal strength as vulnerability. If you've ever felt a pang of empathy for William or wondered about the man behind the title, this is a must-read. It's a poignant reminder that behind the history, the duty, and the glittering facade is a human being who has learned, publicly and painfully, how to break and yet continue to beat in service to others.